Dr. Rob Zatechka sporting the original Pipeline t-shirt today.
I'm trying to find something to latch on to positive here.
I thought for sure last night, there was a point as I was watching the Iowa game, you were going to show up in your Sparty shirt. I thought for sure you were going to show up in your Sparty shirt.
If Michigan State had pulled it off, I would have. But dude, that's a mess in East Lansing right now. I figured Iowa was going to win that one just on defense and special teams alone.
Well, they won it on special teams. I wouldn't say the defense necessarily won it, but they did have 3 picks, I think, last night. And
I mean, that stuff's game changer.
Now, to be fair,
even against a bad team.
To be fair, I wore green today. That's
gray.
You think this is gray?
That's gray.
You're colorblind. This is green,
you're the
dude.
guy who's trying to tell me the difference between dark blue and black, and I'm sitting here going, yeah, there's a difference here, and you're like, no, it's all black.
Oh, and is this green or is this gray?
From here, that looks pretty gray to me, but I'm not sure.
Wow. I'm going to have to... when I bought
That's
this...
great. You are colorblind, dude.
Maybe I am. This is a Fort Robinson t-shirt. You guys know my love affair with Fort Robinson. When I bought it, this is one of my favorite t-shirts, actually, but I thought it was green when I bought it.
I mean, it might have a little green hue to it.
I see the gray like heather. I think
Okay, I mean, there's like a heather gray that has a whiff of green. So, I see that. We're tangenting hard here on the color of t-shirts.
I never thought we were going to start with the color of my t-shirt.
Yeah, let's talk about beer because I want to pop one of these open.
I know because it's tempting you right now, but I got to tell the story behind this. First of all, it was a busy beer delivery week, okay? Cody from Arkansas dropped off some beer at the office, and we're talking like a case and a half of beer I've never heard of. It's all from Arkansas. And I've got it cooling now.
Which Cody has us basically touring the state of Arkansas for all the craft breweries down there.
But about a week and a half ago, a guy by the name of Jason reached out to us and said, hey, you guys never really talk about Western Nebraska beer, and I think there's really good beer out in Western Nebraska. So on Friday, I got a little shipment. It was a little box. I'm like, he sent like 2 12-ounce cans. Well, I opened it this morning, and we got a couple crowlers.
Nice.
All right, there's some big crowlers.
Nice.
He actually, Jason actually put a handwritten note, which I think is super cool. It says, Dr. Rob and Travis, here are some beers from Powell's Brewing Company in North Platte. Not sure if you guys have had anything from here or not. I believe these 2 beers are the best ones that they produce. However, it was tough picking just only 2 to send. I've had the Jalapeno Cream Ale and Knobs IPA. Again, thanks for the podcast and all the other content. Cheers.
Which huge appreciation to Jason. I'm kind of a Pals fan. So
I didn't know that.
Well, anytime I go out to McHugh's in Kearney, that's which I go to Kearney to get North Platte beer.
Because you don't want to go all the way to North Platte.
Which I love McHugh's. So if you're ever in Kearney, go check out McHugh's Tavern. It's all Nebraska craft beers on tap. It is outstanding. They'll fill crowlers of anything you want. It's a great place to visit if you're a beer guy and you're in the Kearney area. Go check out McHugh's. Anytime I'm at McHugh's, I'm drinking Pals.
And anytime you're in North Platte or around North Platte, just go to Pals Brewing Company directly. So he sent the Knobs IPA, which, by the way, is 7.4%.
Woof.
And he sent the Jalapeno Cream Ale, which is 5.7%.
Like I'm sitting here going woof at a 7% beer. It's not like we don't drink 7 to 9%ers on the show. But no, the only other thing I was going to add is that if you're in Omaha, I know Casual Pine every so often has Pals on tap. It's not often, but every so often they do. So check out Casual Pine if you want to give Pals a try.
That's over there in Countryside Village, I believe, right?
It is. That's my neighborhood.
Yeah,
so.
Rob. If you ever really want to see Rob out and about, go to Casual Pine. Odds are that he might be there drinking a beer or 2.
It might happen.
We
were there Friday night after the West Side.
You know that bar where everybody knows your name? That's Casual Pint for you.
It is. They also do the mustaches for kids fundraiser we do every year. The entire Casual Pint staff does that every year.
So you do the honors. You pick which one we're going to have first. I'll let you crack it open.
Well, we were talking. Let's give the jalapeno a try. That way, if it like burns our mouths off, we can sort of what's it called? The refresher palate.
Yes.
Or quencher. What is it? Cleanse the palate.
Cleanse the palate with the IPA.
Cleanse the palate with the IPA. Ooh, there we go.
You know, the interesting part, jalapeno beer is hit and miss with me. Like Jaipur has a really good jalapeno beer.
But it's hit or miss there.
Yeah, and the problem is I don't want a beer that's super spicy. I want a hint of spice. I don't want my mouth to burn, right?
Well, I get that you don't want it to be like there's always that one a-hole at the salsa contest, or the chili contest, where it's like basically liquid ghost pepper with a little bit of ground beef thrown in. That's what you don't want.
Yeah.
Like, and the same thing with the jalapeno beer. I actually like a little burn in my jalapeno beer. I don't want to be sitting there going like, okay, I don't taste anything anymore because my mouth is on fire. Like, I don't want that either. So there's kind of a middle of the road there. You got to have a little burn in it. So,
well, you can smell it, man. You can smell the jalapeno.
Ooh, dude, Cross Train does a good pepper beer. Kincaid's has a jalapeno beer. You ready? We're going to get this.
Well, here's a cheers to Jason Clark.
All right, Jason, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. That was nice of you. Here's our first of the Pals Brewing jalapeno beer. Oh.
See, I think that's perfect.
That's really good.
Like you taste it, it's one of those, you got beer, you got jalapeno, and you can smell it. You get it up to your nose, and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to drink salsa right now.
And the interesting part is, and not to be kind of a dork here, but
we are kind of beer dorks.
So you get the jalapeno on the nose, on the front end, and then it's beer on the back end.
It really is. So like I was expecting to like swallow and get like this slow burn on the swallow, and it's not there.
Wow.
It's all front end. I like that a lot. Good beer.
Jason, you did good. Now, we haven't started the IPA yet.
I have not ever had their jalapeno beer. I don't think I have. I think my wife's had it. When we were out in McHugh's, my wife likes the jalapeno beers, the pepper beers. I think she might have had the jalapeno cream ale from Pals before. But again, it's always been when we've been out in Kearney at McHugh's.
They say it's Wisconsin-born, Nebraska-brewed.
There we go.
Yeah, so if you come from Wisconsin and you brew beer, you're pretty good at the brewing thing, right?
Yeah, Wisconsin does like their beer.
Yeah, I lived in Wausau, and I lived in Marathon County, which had the highest beer consumption of all the counties in Wisconsin. That's per capita.
Doesn't Wisconsin have something like one of the highest rates of alcohol consumption?
Yeah, because they're a bunch of drunks up there.
There's like nothing to do except fish and eat cheese. Which I like to do both those things.
I'm not a fisherman. I'm not, though. I saw a story the other day that if you're a fisherman, you have better mental health. So maybe that's why I'm a whack job.
No, you're just a whack job.
That's true.
I think the Iowa plays into it.
Wow. Yes, there's a kick in the nuts right there. Anytime Rob takes a chance to take a shot at me, he's going to do it. The difference was Iowa beat Michigan State last night. Nebraska lost to Michigan in a game that was over before it even started, Rob.
It really was. I mean, people asked me before this game, like, what's your score prediction? I think a lot of people were looking back at that 21 game at that night game at Memorial Stadium thinking, okay, well, there's a chance we can do that again. And I'm sitting here going like, yeah, no. I mean, that whole year for Scott Frost was such a one-off because you had some legit NFL guys on that roster. You had Torre. You had as much as Adrian Martinez could be a liability, he was a great athlete and a highly experienced quarterback who had the capability to keep Nebraska in a lot of games as much as he could be a liability at times as well, too. But you had a whole slew of sixth-year seniors on that 21 team. It was that's a one-off year in my book. And as good as that 21 Michigan team was, and that was a very good Michigan team, 22 was better. So far this year, 23 Michigan is a better overall team than they were in 21. I kept looking at this and going, okay, when we talked to Scott Spreitzer last Wednesday going into it, he pointed out, he said, look at Michigan. He goes, it's not like they've played a really tough schedule up to this point, although Scott is still fairly high on Rutgers. But The thing he pointed out was just how consistent Michigan is, how much of this consistent product it's the exact same thing week in and week out. And people were like, well, what's your score guess for this game going into it? I'm like 38-7, 35-7 maybe. And everybody's like, why do you say that? I'm like, look at the previous 4 games they played. Literally every single game that Michigan has played this year up until yesterday, it was like 30-something to 3, 30-something to 7. They're basically beating everybody by about 4 touchdowns.
And they called off the. I think they could have scored more yesterday.
Oh, and they've done that in every game, and that's what worries me about this Michigan team is the fact that they've got their they're rotating a lot of guys in mid-late second quarter.
Well, think about that. I mean, you're just getting experience and depth.
Mid-third quarter. And here's the other thing that does for a team. If you're getting guys in and playing guys consistently, you know how you hear people talk about, hey, with the transfer portal and NIL now, you've got to like re-recruit or continue to recruit your own players. You want to know how you recruit your own players? Play them. Get those second, third, fourth string guys. Get those true freshmen, those second-year guys, get them into games in the second, third quarter and give them a taste of action. If you get those guys in there, start giving them a little bit of playing time here and there, that's the best recruiting. So these guys are getting playing time, and they're playing on a nationally televised game, or at least regionally televised game, Power 5, Big Ten opponent. And if you're a second or third stringer and you're in the game second quarter, third quarter, that's huge. That's what keeps guys on your roster. And so Michigan is building something here that we've talked before about Harbaugh, how the shtick went away during the COVID season, and all of a sudden we just saw consistent, good, solid football. And that's what we saw yesterday. I thought Nebraska had no chance, and when you looked at the game, the outcome was exactly what I thought it was going to happen. It was going to be a very clean game. Michigan had, I think it was 3 fumbles, but did not lose any. They got the tipped pass that they intercepted, which it's kind of hard for me to blame Nebraska's offense. Tipped balls are the bane of the offense because they're going to happen. They're going to get picked. And then it looks bad because it's a turnover. And turnovers do kill you, but it's not necessarily the fault of the quarterback. But I mean, Michigan didn't have any turnovers. Strong in the special teams. They ran the ball very consistently, very well. I think Michigan averaged 5 yards a carry on the day. They had the ball for 38 minutes. So they basically controlled the clock.
Well, you look at the 38 minutes.
For 2/3 of the game.
They ran for 249 yards and 4.9 yards per rush. I mean, that 249 on the ground, and nobody had 100 yards. I mean, he used a lot of guys at running back.
And Nebraska does play. I think people are like, oh, we're really not that good on defense. No, they really are. It's just Michigan is that good. This is the best, as a unit, as a team, this is the best offensive line in the country, and it has been for probably 4 years running. Notre Dame's up there, Georgia's up there, Alabama's up there. Washington has a very good offensive line. Florida State has a very good offensive line. Michigan as a unit has probably had the best offensive line in terms of consistent performance over the last 4 years ongoing. And we saw that on Saturday, that they went out and they did what they wanted offensively. Michigan's offense was not put under a lot of stress in this game. They just weren't. And it's because of those guys up front. McCarthy's a very good quarterback, too. We were talking about him before the game as well. He's a very good quarterback.
Corum's a hell of a running back.
And Corum didn't have to shoulder the whole load.
Nobody on the team has to shoulder a load.
They really don't. And that's a beautiful thing to see. That's the thing that's so difficult when you look at Nebraska's offense the last few years. And I'm not talking about with just Rule this year. You go back to Frost, things are very one-dimensional, and it's all been very quarterback-centered. I mean, we bitched and moaned constantly about the fact that Nebraska's leading rusher, again, it's Adrian Martinez. Nebraska's leading rusher, it's Casey Thompson. I mean, it's just, you can't have, Casey wasn't the leading rusher, but you had a lot of games where he had a lot of yardage on the ground, and you don't want to see the offense be centered around one guy like that. If you can be like Michigan and you've got a really, really good quarterback and you've got a really, really good running back, and neither one of them has to shoulder the load, God, talk about a luxury. That's amazing.
I was gonna bring this up later on, but I'm just gonna bring it right now when it comes to the offensive line. Nebraska's offensive line,
it's not good.
It's not good. And I'm going to bring Iowa into this conversation because Iowa's offensive line is not good. And a lot of people, we take phone calls on Saturday night, and people want to know how important that strength and conditioning coach is. I'm going to use Iowa as an example. Chris Doyle isn't there anymore, right? When he was there, they dominated offensive line play. How important is the strength and conditioning coach when it comes to the offense and defensive line?
In this day and age, it's huge. It really is. And that's something that you do say. I mean, is it just not having Doyle there? Has maybe the recruiting changed or fallen off?
But I'm not just talking for Iowa. I'm talking for every single program.
I mean, Iowa's a great example because you saw the loss. You lost Doyle, which, I mean, kind of not a great person, but he was a very good strength and conditioning coach. And we were even talking about the rhabdomyolysis incident a few years ago before we started taping. That kind of thing pops up periodically with a lot of different strength coaches. You see that happen at a number of places. So I'm not talking about that. He was a very good strength and conditioning coach. He really, really is. And that's, I'm not talking about him as a person. I'm talking about him just as the strength coach. And he was a great one, and not having that makes a difference. I think most of the college strength and conditioning coaches are good strength and conditioning coaches. There are a handful of guys that just within the realm of strength and conditioning, they in and of themselves can be a game changer. Doyle was a game changer when it came to that at Iowa.
Well, I just think the good ones, I think you see it in Michigan, is the expectation of being physical. I hate the word physicality because it didn't even seem like a word to me, but the physical dominance that comes, and I wonder if that comes from strength and conditioning coaches of just...
That's really a good beer, by the way.
It's unbelievable.
I'm like, God, this beer is tasty.
Yeah.
No, it is. And Michigan's got that right now. Now, they've also got the fact that they've been playing very good, consistent football for a number of years. They can afford to take some guys and develop them over time. So guys are getting a couple of years in and then hitting the field consistently. So you're seeing guys that have a good couple of years of that strength and strength development, and then they're getting out there and getting the playing time. And so you've got a constant building of depth at a place like Michigan right now. And the strength and conditioning definitely plays into that. I saw some people were asking me, they were kind of bitching and moaning about, hey, when I look at Nebraska's offensive line, I don't know if I'm seeing that physical development. Well, they've got less than a year with these guys. It's not going to happen in a year. A very good strength and conditioning coach's impact happens 2 years down the road. So it's going to take a little time in that regard, but it's also going to be a recruiting thing. It's going to be getting rules guys in here. I can't understate that enough because, I mean, you talk about the game being over. You ask that question, was the game over before it started? Yes is the answer.
It was 21-0 before you could blink.
Yeah. Is Michigan that good? Yes, they are. I mean, I think people really underestimate how good some of these teams who are turning into the consistent playoff caliber teams, and I'm talking about a 4-team playoff caliber team. So I'm not talking about a 12-team playoff. I'm talking about a 4-team playoff. We're talking about practice here.
Talking about practice. Talking about practice.
But when you've got a team that's a playoff caliber team like Michigan, man, that's a good football team. And and there is a huge gap from where Nebraska's at now. Like I'm sitting here going like, okay, we're talking about how like, God, it'd be really nice if Nebraska could get to 6 wins. Like we're talking
They
about.
still can.
They can, but I'm talking about when your goal is like, God, it'd be nice to get to 6 wins. There is a massive gap from Nebraska of last year, maybe this year, to being a 6-win team. There is a big gap between being a 6-win team and being a 9 to 10 win a year team. There is a gap between being a 9 to 10 win a year team and being a playoff team. Those are not small gaps, by the way.
And the gap's going to get bigger, should we say, because of just the way the Big Ten and the playoff structure is going to change. I mean, it's everything's, the 12 team, which I'm in support of. Took me a while to get there. It's going to make it harder. To me, I know 4 teams is tough, but it's the way the Big Ten structured. It's going to be hard to get in.
It is. Well, it's because you're turning into. The Big Ten is turning into basically half of Power 5 football. The SEC is the other half, and then you're going to have this smatterings of others. But yeah, 80% of Power 5 football is going to be the Big Ten and the SEC. The other thing is, also getting rid of the divisions makes it tougher.
It does.
Like right now, if you go back over the last, let's say 8 years and remove the divisions from the Big Ten Conference, probably the 2 best teams in the conference every year for the last 6 or 8 years are all coming from the East.
100%.
Except 2015 when Iowa was undefeated.
Stop it. You're just taking another shot. You and I were joking yesterday.
That beer's still pretty good.
It is pretty good. And I said, hey, yesterday, can I have your report card?
I just inhaled some jalapeno,
and
but it was
I
good.
said, do you just want me to give Fs across the board? And you're like, nah.
Which, and that's what everybody wanted to see.
I know, actually, because when we posted
we said Ds, and people are like, dude, what the hell?
Yes. So you said, hey, I'll explain on the podcast. So you went Ds all the way down. Explain why you didn't go with Fs. And I have a feeling it's because of what you just said. You're talking about the second best team in the country.
Yeah. They might be the best team. Did you see Georgia?
Yeah.
They were really struggling against Auburn for most of that
That
game.
was on the road. Hugh Freeze is a hell of a coach, too. So
I get it, but I think Georgia potentially could be the worst. And I know we always crack jokes about like nobody believed in us with Georgia. Georgia could go down in history as the worst 3-peat national champion ever.
Which doesn't happen that often, a 3-peat.
It doesn't. Which honestly, winning back-to-back is amazingly tough. It really is. The fact that they've done that is a hell of a tribute to what Kirby Smart's done there. But yeah, there's within that top 5 teams in the country, there's a lot of parity within that top 5. There just is. My point here, Michigan might be the best team in the country.
Might be.
They could be the number 1 team in the country. That is a true national title contender, in my opinion.
But think about this. Michigan has to go through Penn State yet, has to go through Ohio State yet.
Yeah. There's some big tests coming up. So we'll see how that goes. I know a lot of people are still looking at Penn State and thinking that might be the best team.
I don't know if I'm sold on that yet.
I'm not sure if I am either. But I don't know if we've really seen Michigan get tested yet. That's the problem. I haven't seen. I know talking to Spreitzer, he had Rutgers with a pretty high power grade, and he thought that Michigan-Rutgers win was a little more impressive behind the scenes on paper than what people are giving it credit for.
Rutgers,
but yeah, they just haven't. But Michigan hasn't had that passing the eyeball level test yet. They haven't had that big game test yet.
It's coming.
No, and it is. Yeah, Nebraska definitely wasn't it, but it's but yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But right now, I think Michigan is one of the most consistently performing teams out there. And the reason I didn't give Nebraska an F is for that reason. Did Nebraska basically flunk everywhere? Yeah. But it's because they were playing arguably the best team in the country.
So that's the bell curve. You move them up the bell curve a little bit.
Yeah, they got scaled on the curve a little bit there because of that. Now, but But that's the difference in these teams. I mean, it's like what Nebraska's done in a couple of games here. Okay, they beat two teams that were not very good. They've got a very sketchy Illinois team that they got to play Friday night. Could Nebraska win that? I hope they do. But that's going to be two teams that honestly are probably fairly evenly matched.
It'll be interesting. And you're transitioning real quick. We'll come back to the Michigan game, but you mentioned Illinois. Illinois got beat by Purdue 44-19. They were 2 of 13 on third down. They allowed 5 sacks. They were penalized 9 times. They only had 1 turnover, but they gave up 21 third quarter points. My question is, this is year number 3 for Brett Bielema. Is this dude on the hot seat? Because this team has regressed. It's not progressed.
There's a little regression here. This is now one of those things where you look at and go like, okay, was he playing with somebody else's better recruits that first couple of years? So I kind of wonder about that. I think the system he put in at Illinois was a solid system. I mean, he kind of went with the Wisconsin route again. Big linemen, strong running game. Let's play some good defense. And I kind of think that maybe is this a case where he's lost a few guys to graduation over the last couple of years, and maybe he just doesn't have the horses to kind of keep this going forward. So this is going to be interesting to see. I'm not going to pin anything on 1 year. I hate doing that to a coach. Let they have a couple of solid years. Because, I mean, after last year, I'm sitting here going like, I heard Nebraska fans like, God, why couldn't we have gotten somebody like Bielema? I mean, there's always the why couldn't we have gotten so-and-so.
It's already happened with Dion. Why couldn't Nebraska have gotten Dion?
Exactly. Now you're looking at Dion and going like, maybe we didn't want that.
I'll give Dion and Colorado credit. They were down big to USC yesterday and rallied. I mean, they made it a game.
Did, but God, you can't tell me USC didn't take their foot off the gas pedal, which from a mental strength standpoint is a question mark for USC. Because you want to see those teams that you want to be able to, like, in my mind, the mark of a really, really good team is the team that can take their foot off the gas pedal. And then when, they're coming back. All right, well, let's just hit the gas pedal again. And they can do it.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do. I've been there, and I've been in both situations where we've had to we got to put our foot back on the gas again here for a bit. And we've been able to do it. I've been on teams where it's like, we got to get our foot back on the gas pedal, and you just can't. That might be one of the hardest. That momentum shift is really hard to do when you're way out front, and you put in some backups, the other team starts chipping away, and now all of a sudden you got to hit the gas pedal again. God, that's tough to do. But I think USC took their foot off the gas pedal. They blew out Colorado. Kudos to Colorado for A, keeping fighting, and B, Lincoln Riley needs to work on that mental strength on his own team a little bit more. So,
well, they're gonna, when you come to the Big Ten, this speaks to Oregon. It speaks to UCLA. It speaks to USC. That you better come with a defense, because if you don't come with a defense, you're not going to compete in this league. You can score a lot of points as the IPA gets opened up. But if these teams from the Pac-12 don't come with defenses, they're going to find life a little harder than they thought.
No, and that's true. And that's like Nebraska coming from the Big 12 to the Big 10. Dude, we were like, we're going to freaking rule this conference. It's going to be great. We're going to crush them in football. We're going to crush them in baseball. This is going to be the greatest thing ever. Volleyball is going to be tough. It's going to be really tough for Nebraska in the Big Ten because all the great volleyball is in the Big Ten. It's been the exact opposite. Volleyball's kicked ass, and we've struggled in football and baseball. But a lot of it is because I think Nebraska at the time, they were built for the Big 12, those wide open offenses, and they got over to the Big 10. It was like, oh shit, we got to be able to all these teams in the Big Ten, they line up 5 sledgehammers on the offensive line and just keep pounding on you till you break. And if you can't withstand that, you're going to have some trouble.
Going back to the Illinois game, which, by the way, is a Friday night, which adds a different dynamic to it. Do you like Friday? I don't like Friday night college football.
I'm one of those guys that, God, I think it was Tom Allen mentioned it earlier this year. He said Friday nights for high school football. And it really is, in my opinion.
So, looking at Illinois, which has yet to win a Big Ten game. They've lost to Purdue 44-19, lost to Penn State 30-13.
Yeah, everybody's losing to Penn State.
So they're 2-3 right now. Brett Bielema is going to have to use Nebraska as a battle cry because after Nebraska, Illinois is at Maryland, at home against Wisconsin, at Minnesota. Then it has Indiana, at Iowa, and Northwestern. There's nothing.
It's not a super tough schedule.
But the way they're playing right now, it's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, when you're losing bad, I mean, that's an ugly loss to Purdue.
Yeah.
Indiana's not good. Maryland's looking way better.
Really good.
Yeah, they're actually looking pretty good.
Which, by the way, adds a different dynamic to the East Division, too, right?
Yeah, it does.
It really, really does.
What happens if Maryland starts consistently performing here? Again, all of a sudden, that Eastern Division's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. They're getting some athletes there.
Yeah.
So.
Now, they haven't really been tested yet. They play Townsend, Charlotte, Virginia, Michigan State, Indiana. They're going to find out more next weekend because they go to Ohio State. So that'll be Maryland's really first big test.
That's a pretty smooth IPA, by the way.
Yeah, is it hoppy or not?
Well, it's an IPA, so yeah, it's kind of hoppy, but it's not bad
It's not bad? All right.
So it's a pretty damn smooth IPA. So this one I have had before.
Don't forget that Fred is your guy when you want to bet. More bonuses, more bets. Right now, get your bet back if your team loses in overtime. And when you bet on a player to score first, you get double the price if they score twice. New customers can get more than $1,000 in bonuses. BetFred is the bonus king. Terms and conditions do apply. You must be 21 plus. Wagers only accepted in the states where BetFred is doing business. And if you can't find those, just go to BetFredSports.com for more information. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-BETS-OFF. Let's go back to Heinrich Harburg yesterday. He ran the ball 9 times for -2 yards. He actually gained 29, lost 31 because he gets on his back half the time because of sacks.
Kind of hard to blame him for most
really
of those.
He was 14-25, 199 yards. It's a career high. He had 1 pick, but again, sacked 4 times.
Yeah, and the pick was a tipped pass.
Do you think you see Jeff Sims at all anymore unless Harburg gets hurt?
Boy, I'm not sure. I mean, part of me is looking at this going, okay, he's really, I mean, there was the interception yesterday, but I'm not sure you really pin that on him. I mean, the tipped passes are that's like one of the very few. A defensive player makes a great play at the line of scrimmage to tip it up and pick the ball. Do you pin that on the quarter? Maybe it's one of those, he should have timed that a little better, should have gotten a little more loft on the ball. I don't know. I don't blame those a lot on anybody. It's just sometimes the other guy gets a paycheck and you got to give the defense props for getting their hands up and tipping it. So you've got a guy in Harburg who really hasn't accounted for much in terms of the turnovers. That's been a huge improvement.
I would agree with you.
Nebraska's, since Harburg's come in, Nebraska's basically gone 2-1. And that one loss is against arguably the best team in the country. So there's some, I think there's a little credit to be given here. I do look at Sims and go, okay, but if I need a guy to break that big play, I know the big runs Harburg had against La Tech, but geez, it's La Tech. Sims would have had the big runs too against La Tech. I think Sims is a more explosive runner, which is saying something because Harburg's a really, really good athlete and has some crazy speed.
So if you check out the Doc's Diagnosis later or on Monday, whenever you listen to this, go to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel. But the first Doc's Diagnosis we have is a 4th and 1 situation in the first quarter where they were at the line of scrimmage, they call timeout, they come back and put Harburg in the shotgun. And I think you and I both hate shotgun on 4th and 1. But I think they do that thinking because of his size and his strength that he could have gotten that I think that's the mentality there.
Yeah, but
It's a stupid mentality.
it's the dumbest thing ever. Hey, we need 4th and 1. Let's back the ball carrier up 5 to 7 yards. It's the most moronic thing ever. And if you look at that play, they could have had the first down before the timeout. I mean, we'll talk about the timeout and the doc's diagnosis. Still not sure what happened there, but it was interesting because if you listen to Rule's press conference, he gets asked about it, he talks about it, and he says, he was like, hey, I panicked.
I know you're human, but you've been a head coach for a long time. Do you panic in that situation? I mean, it's a weird time to panic.
Yeah, and it's one of those situations where you made the point the clock was running.
He had 10 seconds on the play clock.
They could have snapped it at any point in time, and Michigan wasn't even lined up yet.
Harburg may have scored if he would have went to the left side.
I mean that is a situational awareness snafu. But by Nebraska's offense, I'm sure a little bit by Harburg, I'm sure by the coaching staff. But if you look at that, and we'll show it on the diagnosis, Rule's over there on the sideline, counting down, getting ready to call timeout, almost like you do before the opponent's trying to kick a field goal. He's waiting for that clock to tick down and then calls a timeout. And it's one of those things where I'm like, he was going to call a timeout from the get-go here. Like it wasn't I saw something at the last minute. Holy shit, I panicked and called a timeout. I truly think he lined up, wanted to see what Michigan was going to do, was waiting for Michigan to line up. Michigan finally got lined up. Then Rule calls the timeout and comes back out with, okay, here's the shotgun play. This is what I really wanted to run.
Which was bizarre.
Maybe he thought, I'm going to line up under the center, have Michigan think, here's what we're going to do. Now that I know what Michigan's going to line up in, now I'm going to call timeout and come out with something just a little bit different. Just the only difference in the play is he backed up the quarterback 5 yards and came out of shotgun instead of under the center, which if he had run the play the first time instead of calling the timeout, they get the first down, or as like you said, they possibly score. If they come out the second time when they actually did snap it and run the play, if they had ran it from under center, they get the first down. I don't give a lot of credit to Corcoran. He nuked his guy on that fourth down play.
He got it right. The one time he gets it right.
The one time he gets it right, the coach got it wrong. And yeah, Corcoran drove his guy and planted him 2 yards past the line to get. Ethan Piper blew up his dude. If Harburg had snapped it from under center and just fell to the left behind Piper, he gets the first down. He got stuffed because they ran the play from shotgun.
And so if you want a more detailed analysis of this, subscribe to the Doc Talk Sports YouTube channel. It's going to be up there on Monday, and Doc does a really good job of really diagramming everything that happened during that sequence. And just absolutely fascinating. And you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel anyway, just for behind the point spread, the shorts that we put up. You can also subscribe or like or follow us on TikTok, Facebook, and Rob informs me. I guess we have an Instagram page. I had no idea about that, but it's out there.
We don't do much on Instagram.
We don't do much.
It takes too much effort. The YouTube shorts are great, though. By the way, the TikToks that are going up on YouTube.
So thank Owen for that.
Dude, Owen basically.
He runs the ship.
He is. He is the captain of the ship. So.
And so he comes up with a wish list.
We're just the talent.
It's his world. We're just breathing his air.
Exactly.
You hear him laughing in the background. He didn't want to hop on and join this conversation.
And one thing I wanted to touch on really quick. So we had an email this week talking about the doc's diagnosis.
Oh, let me set this up. And
I thought about it, and I mean, I get kind of like, dude, stay in your lane. Yeah. I'm the former NFL offensive lineman. Just take what I say for granted. There were some points he made that I kind of did want to touch on a little bit off of last week's
to let everybody
diagnosis.
know, somebody watched the diagnosis and basically said, Rob, you're wrong. You diagnosed the whole thing all wrong. And I think both can be right. Both can be right.
That is where So We had a play last week on the offensive line where the left guard, and it was a Corcoran play per usual, where he gets beat for a sack. And Corcoran gets beat to the outside where he's got help from, it was either a running back or it might have been sort of one of the H-backs or tight ends in there giving him a little bit of help. And Corcoran actually gets tripped up by the back who was helping him on the outside there. And it's one of these things where he gets tripped up a little bit and the defender gets around both guys to get in on the sack. And in the email, the point was made that, like, hey, this maybe wasn't really Corcoran's fault. I guess my take on it is like, yeah, you're right. Corcoran did get tripped up by that guy. Here's the thing, though. That guy's there to help Corcoran because we're seeing a continuing failure by him as a left tackle to be able to maintain that blindside protection. Yeah. He just can't do it. We do a doc's diagnosis again on this one. Corcoran gets beat badly on an outside rush, and it wasn't anything special. It was a good, solid effort by the edge guy, by the edge rusher. Corcoran gets turned, his bad technique. The rusher gets his hand onto Corcoran's chest, stands him up, drives him backwards, and gets the sack. When that's happening consistently, the response by a coaching staff is, okay, we got to give this guy a little bit of help. I mean, sometimes the guys you have are the guys you have, and you got to give them a little bit of help. Guess what? I've been there as an offensive lineman. I've gone to the sideline and told the coaches, hey, this guy's a Pro Bowler. I could use a spare pair of hands here. If somebody could come in, have the fullback on this particular play, the fullback's heading out into the flat. Can you just get a little chip block on that dude before he heads out into the flat for me? And it's going to take like 1/10 of a second, and that would help me, and he's still going to get in position to catch the pass. I've had to ask for that help before. That's a normal thing in football. Corcoran sometimes needs that outside help. That in and of itself is due to the fact he doesn't have that capability to maintain the outside control against pass rushers. He just doesn't.
Yeah. Because week in and week out, we see it.
Yeah, and we've seen it for 3 years. This is not anything new. Now, the guys that are doing that, getting that little chip on the outside, giving them a little bit of help, it's a huge timing thing. You got to be good at it. If you're a football junkie, go back and watch mid to late 1990s Arizona Cardinals and watch Larry Centers as a fullback. He would light dudes up on chip blocks. For his fullback position, Larry Centers would come out when he was going out into his pass patterns. He would put this little chip block where he'd just throw a shoulder into the defensive end or the outside linebacker and would just light dudes up. I mean, the offensive tackles for the Arizona Cardinals really didn't have to do anything. They just wait for Larry Centers to blow their guy up for them. Nebraska's, it's a skill set that you got to learn as a running back or a tight end or an H-back, any of those guys lining up in the backfield or the motion guys coming over to help the offensive tackle out. There's a skill set there in terms of helping the offensive tackle out on a pass block without tripping the dude, without tripping your own guy up, without throwing your own guy off balance. And right now, Nebraska's not very good at that. And so when you email me and say, hey, it doesn't necessarily look like the offensive tackle's fault here, yeah, you're right there. You've got a motion guy, you've got a tight end, you've got a fullback or a running back coming over who is throwing that offensive tackle off balance on those blocks. You are correct. I would also say the reason the offensive tackle needs that help in the first place is because he's not very good at pass protection from a tackle spot.
And here's the deal, and I forget who sent the email, is that, and this happens in text messages, it happens in emails, is that
in Twitter and everywhere.
It's you interpret a tone. Right? If you were having a conversation, it would probably come off different, but when you read it, and I read it the same way you did, I'm like, what an asshole. I mean,
Well, I didn't think asshole. I was just like,
I did. I
was just like, don't question me. I know everything.
Well, but that's what I was like. I was like, okay, you're going to tell Dr. Rob we got a 36 on his ACT. Did you?
I only got like a 31.
What? You disappoint me.
I didn't study for it. I didn't do a prep test.
You're Dr. Rob Zatechka. You didn't get a 36?
I was out with buddies the night before, and then I just rolled in and took the test in the morning.
I feel like everything you've ever told me is a complete sham now. Don't you feel robbed, Owen? I mean, don't you feel like, a 31?
I heard a lot of excuses after he said 31.
Yeah, so
I was tired. I took a nap for the last 20 questions of the test.
I don't know if I can continue to call you the smartest guy I know. I know a lot of people getting 36, and you're not one of them. My whole world just came crashing down.
Hold on. Does anybody else know who these people are that got the 36 on their ACTs?
Oh, and how many kids did you go to prep with that got 36s on their ACT?
I don't know, a couple. I mean, 31's still a pretty good score.
Hey, does anybody else know who those guys are?
Like in
the world?
Yeah.
Are they doctors now? Doctors and lawyers probably, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Nerds.
Nerds!
Bunch of freaking nerds.
All I see is John Goodman in Revenge of the Nerds going, in an ogre.
Nerds! The coach.
Might have been John Goodman's finest role, right? I mean,
that's like the one role, like you're like, hey, name off all of John Goodman's roles.
And you're going to go, coach.
No, it's like that's the one nobody ever thinks about.
It's the one I think about all the time. It is.
Man, I always think Big Lebowski.
Well, yeah.
Or Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh, yeah. But Coach comes to my mind. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou, by the way, a much underappreciated movie.
Oh, that's a great movie. It is such a good flick.
Yeah.
Do you know the basis of the story?
The Odyssey and the Iliad.
It was.
Yeah.
Dude, look at you all intellectual. Freaking nerd.
Something never's ever been said about me as intellectual, by the way. Never.
Nerd.
Never, ever, ever. Hey, before we move on, I do want to bring up two things back from the Michigan game.
Hold on. The last thing I'm going to say.
Okay.
Keep the emails coming. If you see some, here's the thing. My bottom line with
Wide
this.
shot, Owen. Look at this. We got a bunch of email we're going to read today because.
Okay, my bottom line is here on that email. You made a good point.
Yeah.
You really did. And guess what? Yeah, I think you're right. Corcoran needs help, and Nebraska, I don't think, has the practice, the timing, and or the capability to give him the help he needs effectively. And so you see guys coming in who are basically picking him off of his own blocks at times. And so that's, there's times, and by the way, Fedoni did get kind of lit up on that play. Yeah. So yeah, you're right there too. If you've got an email and you see something, you're like, I got some questions about your doc's diagnosis where I think you might be wrong. Let us know. We'll talk about it. Yeah, you're right. Corcoran gets picked off by his own guys that are trying to help him, and that screws him up and makes the play look bad.
It's a case where two things can be right at the same time.
Yeah. Corcoran's still not a very good offensive lineman.
And I know it was Michigan, and you're going to say it's the second best team in the country.
First.
It's their first best
team.
They
might be the best.
Okay. Nebraska still on third down yesterday, 3 of 10, and 0 for 2 in the red zone. They could have scored in the red zone. They got stopped on fourth down. You could have kicked a field goal there. Hell, if you would have snapped the ball when you were ready to snap the ball.
That was all on Rule.
That was all on Rule. But not good in the red zone, not good on third down yesterday.
No. I'm not sure that's really been a strength of this team anyway. Yeah. So it's that's kind of one of those stats. It's hard to color it in light of the fact of who you're playing. There is such a difference between La Tech, Minnesota, even Colorado, and Michigan. Look at what Oregon did against Colorado.
Demolished them.
Michigan's better than Oregon.
I would agree with you.
Michigan is way better than Oregon. That's so. In my mind, this is a throwout game. I hate saying that. When you're as bad as Nebraska is right now and you're playing a team as good as Michigan is, it's a little bit of a throwout game. Nebraska, I hate saying this, they had no chance.
There you
They
heard it.
didn't.
I'm with you, and that's why it was interesting because Scott Spreitzer on Behind the Point Spread said, guys, I can't bet Nebraska. And somebody on, I think it was on one of the shorts, said, you can't, but I can. Well, you just lost money.
Yeah.
You just lost money.
You can't. That Nebraska, I'm looking at this game going in and going, Nebraska's got no chance. This is not going to happen.
Hey, do you need a lawyer? We have one for you.
I know. We know a guy.
We know a guy. His name is Connor Orr, and he's a hell of a guy. And he focuses on corporate and personal injury litigations in both Nebraska and Iowa. He can work with you on your business planning, your estate planning, and your real estate transactions. Plus, he's a licensed sports agent and can help you with the NIL stuff. So call Connor today at Orr and Horgan at 402-408-6488. Talking to my buddy Scott Strunk today over there. I'm going to show you this, Rob.
I talked to Scott on
this is their number one selling T-shirt this year. Read it to everybody. It's a red shirt.
Oh, dude, your phone just went to sleep.
Okay, so I'm gonna open this back. It's a red shirt down at Husker Hounds, and it says,
"That is outstanding, dude."
What's it say?
Dude, we need this in black and gold, and we need to go sell it in Iowa because it would sell like hotcakes over there.
It would.
You should have seen us in the 90s, though.
And it's just an outline of the state of Nebraska.
That's all. You should have seen us in the 90s, though. That is freaking money. I love that.
Scott has that available in small through triple X. And if you're looking for deals at Husker Hounds, all October, house flags are 25% off. Same for ceramic game day party trays, travel mugs. Halloween just around the corner, so if your kids want to dress up as a cheerleader or a football player, you got cheerleader costumes and football jerseys, 25% off. 2 locations in the Omaha area, the Superstore at 84th and Center, and out west at 171st and Lakeside Hills Plaza.
I give a lot of money to Scott.
Well, that's good. You just gave money to Owen, by the way.
I did. Owen's got T-shirts now.
Yeah. So
But yeah, I just, I got a while back, I got a really nice pullover. Little quarter zip.
Yeah,
it's not the coach's smock that all college football coaches are wearing these days.
I'm a big smock guy. I like that because Dave Remington gave me one of his a couple of years ago, and I like that. I like the smock.
Were there,
well, it's because it's a fat guy shirt. It really is. If you got a belly, the smock is the best.
It is, but I'm kind of one of those if I got the quarter zip, it's got to be long sleeve for me.
Yeah. You heard us talk about the Doc's Diagnosis. It is brought to you by Centris Federal Credit Union. The team at Centris takes pride in working directly with their members to help them achieve their unique financial goals. They work with you to make sure you're getting what you need from your home equity loan or any other product or service that they offer. Centris Federal Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA, equal housing lender, and of course they sponsor the Doc's Diagnosis, which you can watch by subscribing to our YouTube channel.
And every so often, Steve gives us beer.
And we got some Centris shirts coming too that we can wear during the diagnosis.
Well, I said we need some Centris swag to wear for the diagnosis.
Yeah. And
we got our BetFred swag.
I think they ordered it specifically for us.
Nice.
So it's supposed to be here this week sometime.
That's I love it.
We brag about all the free shit we get. We don't really mean to, but it's
but we've got some great sponsors.
We do.
Scott does awesome. I give money to Scott because Scott takes care of us, and he's got great products at Husker Hounds. I mean, and he'll order anything for you. Joel Wilkes orders Oregon gear through Scott because he does a great job with it.
And let me say this,
and he's got the cheapest freaking shipping anywhere.
And I get it when you're listening to a podcast that sometimes you just want us to talk, you don't want us to read sponsors. I'm telling you right now, and this podcast could not be what it is. And what I mean by that, from a YouTube channel, if you go watch this podcast on a YouTube channel, it looks like a regular television production.
From a quality standpoint.
Yes. It could not be what it is without our sponsors. I mean, Rob and I, when we first started this, I think this is year 10 for the podcast now. I mean, we were podcasting before anybody else was fucking podcasting. We were.
We were podcasting before I knew what the hell a podcast.
Yes.
I was like, what's a podcast? And you were trying to explain it to me, and I'm like, I don't get it, but let's just talk and drink beer.
Full disclosure, Rob and I aren't getting rich doing this, okay? We make a little bit of money. But what we do is reinvest back into the podcast so we can try to make it better and better and better. I mean, we've got a 4-camera shoot going right now. We've got a full switcher. We're trying to make it the best we can.
We do have good sponsors.
Yes.
And I will say this. I mean, you look at what Steve Swanstrom does with Centris. It's a great organization. He's a great interview, by the way, because we've interviewed him in terms of leadership and corporate leadership. He's a great teacher. I've worked with Connor in the legal world. We've done some consulting back and forth with each other. He is an excellent, excellent lawyer. Like I said it already, I give a lot of money to Scott over at Husker Hounds because he has great, whatever you want, he can, if he doesn't have it, and he probably already has it,
yes,
he will get it for you, and he will get it fast. The shipping's nothing. And he's going to throw you a discount just for walking in and saying hello.
And the truth is, BetFred is so, whether you like it, and I mean, think about this. Online gambling, app gambling isn't even legal in Nebraska yet, but they see what we're doing here and understand that you still have to go to Iowa or Colorado if you're bordering Nebraska to even bet with BetFred. But I think they see what you and I are producing, and that's why we just wanted to surround ourselves with good people.
They've been a great partner from day one.
Yeah, they really have. Or the last 2 years.
We need to get Brian back on.
He quit.
Oh,
yeah,
damn it!
You know, I mean, he started the BetFred operations in the United States, and I think his dad died over the summer, and I think that just took a toll. And he was traveling. He told me it's like traveling like 250 nights a week or a year.
That's tough. He's married. That's a tough thing to do.
So he's going to take about a year off and just kind of see what's going on. One of the most odd things happening over the week was that Nebraska finally announced, and I've known about it for a long, long time.
Probably way more than you want to talk about.
And I can't go into what I know yet. Maybe someday I will. But the $450 million expansion, or actually retraction, I guess you could say, of Memorial
Stadium.
Renovation.
Contraction.
But so here's the deal. They're going to tear the South Stadium down. They're going to rebuild it. You're going to have about 10,000 less seats. People lost their freaking mind over this, and it blows my mind away because you are improving. The other alternative here, I just want everybody to know, and this I'm going to say this because I do know this. The other alternative was to demolish Memorial Stadium and build a new stadium somewhere else.
That got discussed.
It did.
And it got discussed.
Yes.
I mean, both you and I know some of the people involved in these discussions. And we're not talking about Trev Alberts here, by the way. We're talking about the money people behind the scenes, the construction companies, the big corporations that would have been involved in the building process here. We know some of these people personally. That was the other option.
Yes, there was a,
and it was probably way more serious than I think.
And it's okay to think that because you sit there and go, as you weigh the pros and cons and the return on investment, you go, God, is a new stadium worth it? Now, I know everybody likes the 90-some thousand. Listen, it's okay to have 86,000. You're not Tennessee. You're not Michigan. You're not Texas. You're not Texas A&M. As far as there's so much fan base there, right?
I get it. And it's if you look at, I mean, the high water marks in Nebraska football history.
Okay, that IPA is pretty good.
It's a good, I've had the Knobs IPA from Pals before. They consistently do a good, see, that's how I judge beer.
Yeah.
If they consistently put the same product out there, that's what you like to see.
Jason, by the way, Jason Clark, by the way, if you want to send us more, we'll take it. If you want to send us beer, just send us an email at doctalksports@gmail.com.
Yeah, the Pals out of North Platte, it's good stuff. Like I said, I go to McHugh's. Usually the first beer I'm looking for, because again, Casual Pint has it every so often. But it's hard to get Pals in Lincoln or Omaha. And so I go out to McHugh's. The first thing I'm getting is Pals.
Yeah.
They do a really nice job. It's consistently a good product. Anyway, back to the stadium.
Yes.
The high water marks in Nebraska football history all happened with a 76,000 capacity.
Yes.
And guess what? The loudest I've heard that stadium, I mean, the times I think about loudest, Colorado in 1990. That was the Kenny Walker game, the Deaf Wave.
By the way, keep talking. I'm going to go take a piss.
Dude, that was mind-blowingly loud. The other one, oh geez, it was the Alex Henry field goal where Henry hit the field goal against a 57-yarder against Colorado, and then in Ndamukong Suh, Zach Potter bats the ball up into the air. Suh intercepts it, runs it back for a touchdown. That was pretty amazingly loud. Those were like, I mean, obviously the 90 game was 76,000. That was what, 09, I think, for the Colorado game with Sue and Zach Potter. That was what, like 86,000. So when you look at these numbers, the thing that gets me about this is that you don't have to have 90,000+ people for it to be loud. And I appreciate the fact that people packed the stadium with 91,000 or whatever it was on Saturday against Michigan in shitty heat. It's hotter than hell against an opponent that really, if you got half a brain, you knew was going to nuke you, and still 90,000 people show up. The other games I think about, Michigan State in the snow a few years ago, it was that 6-3 win over Michigan State in the blowing snowstorm. They packed the stadium that day. They put 90,000 people in the stands for that game, and Nebraska won. It was the shittiest weather of all time. People will show up. I get that. It's just there's an overall quality, though, when I go to a game and I'm sitting in my seats. I'm a season ticket holder. I pay for my seats. I make the donation, et cetera, et cetera. It's not a great experience.
No,
I'm packed in like a damn sardine. I love the people around me because I sit right next to one of my wife's sorority sisters. In 2 rows in front of me is a couple of buddies from the gym. 1 row in front of me are a couple of nurses I worked with back at Creighton back in the day during residency who freaking saved my ass more often than I'd like to admit. It's all these people that you know, and I get that, but geez, we're packed in like sardines. It's not great. Oh. I have now. Here's the thing. Also, remember when they did the ticket holder survey?
Yeah.
Like one of the things that consistently came up over and over and over again, and everybody talks about like, well, we want beer, we want a better concourse, we want better amenities. Can you fix the bathrooms? I'm like, screw the bathrooms. I want troughs against the wall.
Amen to that, brother.
Or nothing else. The consistent response on all of those surveys was like, good Lord, you gave us 10 inches per seat. We're freaking Nebraskans. We're not skinny.
A bunch of fatties.
We're not skinny. You got to give us more freaking room.
Well,
and I have always said, hey, knock 10,000 seats off, knock 15,000 seats out of there, and let's give everybody a little bit more room. And everybody will. And guess what? It'll be a hell of a hot ticket. And it's now there's 2 things that I feel bad about, and I do agree with the bitch and moan about, and that is there's season ticket holders who aren't going to have season tickets.
True.
The people who do have season tickets, and for some people, this is their summer vacation equivalent where you save up for the year, you pinch pennies so you can take the family on a family vacation every year. For a lot of people in the state, their season tickets are that. They save up to buy tickets so they can take the family to Nebraska football games during the fall. And that's a thing in this state. And it has been for decades. And when I talk decades, I'm talking like 6, 7, 8 decades. I'm not talking about, well, since 1991. I'm talking about since like the 1940s. People have done that.
But this is
those are the people. You knock 10,000 seats out, 15,000 seats out, drop this down to 76,000 again. You can't tell me the ticket prices aren't going up.
Well, there's going to be a whole bunch of things. That you're going to have loge seats. You're going to have different styles of seating.
There's going to be whole levels of donations that you're going to get to make, and levels of donation you're going to have to make.
And here's the deal. You may not like it, and I get it. And trust me, it's like when my property tax bill comes in. I get pissed off, right? I mean, my mortgage payment, for no fucking reason whatsoever, just went up $500 a month because insurance and do I like it? No, but I don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
You know? So at the end of the day, this is going to make Memorial Stadium modern. Where they screwed up is when they did the renovation to the East Stadium and the North Stadium, they didn't do some of these other. A lot of the shit could have been taken care of a long time ago. But the truth is, the South Stadium for a long time has needed to go.
It's been a death trap.
It's been a bad.
I was there when a chunk of it fell off.
Yes. Okay. So it needs to be renovated.
Here, you talk about this. I'm going to go do what you just did.
Well, it's just moving forward. Progress to a lot of people sometimes is hard to take. And you may not look at it as progress. You may want to hold on to that little bit of history. That's like holding on to the 90s, all right? They're not there. As Scott Strunk said on his T-shirt, you should have seen us in the 90s, though. That's great, but they're no longer here. To stay relevant, to stay competitive, to offer the best fan experience, you have to make decisions like this. Things can't stay the same forever, because if they do, they get old, they get outdated, and it become just not any good. Wrigley Field is a good example. When the Ricketts, you can say whatever you want about the Ricketts family, and a lot of people don't like the Ricketts family, but they bought the Cubs and they bought Wrigley Field, and they made a lot of changes to Wrigley Field. The purists were like, "Oh my God, how can you do this? You're making it corporate. You're making it, it's just not baseball." I got news for you. Wrigley Field was a shithole. Okay. Wrigley Field was an absolute shithole. And what the Ricketts family has done in and around Wrigley Field has made it a much better stadium for a better fan experience. Are some people going to be left out? Sure are. You know what that's called? That's called life. It's going to happen. But this is a necessary thing for Nebraska to do. Now, the interesting part would be to sit down with Doug Ewald or Trev Alberts and go, if you had to do it all over again, would you do the Go Big Red, the Go Big or Go Red project? Because I don't know if facilities are all that important in the college football world today as it is NIL and a better fan experience in the stadium.
Now, when you say better fan experience, though, what exactly do you mean?
I think you're offering loge seats. You're going to offer different types of seats.
Okay.
You're offering wider seating. You're offering better Wi-Fi. You're offering better.
You're saying wins or better fan experience?
No, I think to progress as a program, you have to make the changes that you're doing at Memorial Stadium, or you will die.
I agree.
And I pointed out you were gone, but I said it's no different what the Ricketts did at Wrigley Field. People like when they went in and changed the whole Wrigleyville, people were like, "Oh my God, what are you doing? You're ruining baseball." No, you're modernizing a piece of shit stadium. And I got news for you: you can love Memorial Stadium all you want. It's been a shithole for a little bit. And even with the East renovation, it looks good.
Okay, that's a facade.
It's all it is.
Like
it's Vegas. It's Vegas.
It's an old West storefront.
Yes.
Dude, Vegas is right. It's the entire town. It's one giant.
That's all it is.
It's kind of why I like Fremont Street.
Because it's real. That's
You go to old Vegas, and there's still a lot of bright lights, but the facades are gone.
Yes. The East Stadium's a facade.
Yeah, that's it.
You know what we call it in the real world? Polishing a fucking turd.
Damn, look at that. Well, here's the other thing. So if you want a good example of this, so I know there's a lot of people that will still tell you, hey, the College World Series was better at Rosenblatt.
No, it's not.
It's not. Now, here's the other thing. When you look at the situation from the standpoint of, so we were doing the old, doing the sports sound off show that you started at KM3.
Yeah, which that channel's a piece of shit now.
Well, it's a facade.
It's a facade. It's a news channel. Jesus Christ, we got out at the right time.
But Owen's laughing back here.
I mean that place is a fucking shithole.
So
I feel sorry for anybody who works there.
I know. I feel so bad, dude. But it was good when we were there.
It was great.
What cracks me up is Sports Sound Off was wasn't it for a while the highest rated
it beat
show on the channel.
So news would be on from 10 to 10:30. We get higher ratings at 10:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like after half this town has gone to bed, we're getting higher ratings. No, when we did a breakdown they did a big economic impact of building at the time. It was TD Ameritrade announced Charles Schwab Field and moving the College World Series to North Downtown. And that was one of these things that people are like, it's destroying the tradition. It's not going to be the same. It's going to be horrible. and you looked at what the cost was of having, not the cost, what the economic revenue was from having the College World Series in Omaha. And when you looked at those numbers, because I think we actually had Mayor Fahey on the show.
Listen, here's the deal.
The numbers were astronomical. It was one of those, you couldn't afford to lose the College World Series.
At the end of the day,
had to have
people bitch about losing Rosenblatt. Like, oh my God, you got to admit. Then let's not forget, go back, 20 years now? There were people who said, you can't build the CenturyLink Center, now the CHI Center. Yeah, the Omaha Civic Auditorium is good enough. Are you fucking crazy? Think about what you're saying there. Can you imagine?
Yeah, it's better.
Listen, I'll use
Schwab
Lincoln as an
is
example.
better. Guess what? The fucking zoo is better with the space that used to be.
Let's use an example.
Rosenblatt.
You want Pershing fucking Auditorium in Lincoln, or do you want Pinnacle Bank Arena?
Yeah, I'm taking Pinnacle Bank.
Thank you.
I had a lot of good days at Pershing back in high school.
Progress,
Pinnacle Bank is better.
Progress is hard. I get it. I understand it. You're emotionally attached. You're historically attached.
Well,
you can't live in the fucking 90s forever.
And I've talked to, so I haven't been to Faurot Field in Columbia, Missouri since they did a major renovation. I haven't been to, I don't know, the stadium in Manhattan, Kansas. I mean, it's Bill Schneider Field. Yeah. It's Bill Schneider Family Stadium, whatever. And I haven't been to, is it War Memorial at Wyoming?
Oh, I had no reason to go to Wyoming except to go to the Tetons.
Well, all I know is they those are three places that they did major renovations on. It was old stadiums, been around forever, a lot of history at those places. They did major renovations on them, and I've talked to a lot of people who've been to all of those places, and everybody's like, it's so nice.
But the difference with those is that they added seats. You're retracting here.
They retracted at some of they added some here, they took some away there. The thing is that you look at these stadiums and what they've done with it, and the modernization is a very good thing. And I look at this in the sense of, you can look at these, I call them one-off games. So you can look at the Michigan game yesterday and go, okay, it's the number 2 team in the country. You know you're going to get your ass kicked. It's 94 degrees out, but guess what? 91,000 people shut up. This is awesome. Okay, you know what? 90,000 tickets got sold for La Tech, but there was big gaps in that stadium. There
were big gaps after halftime for yesterday's game, by the way.
Yeah, there were. There were the week before there were gaps. This is one of those things where I get it, but let's make it so this is kind of a hot ticket.
Yeah.
And when you go to
supply and demand, the demand is not there.
You knock it down to 76, 77,000 people.
Even 82.
Yeah. It's like you knock 10,000 off of there, and all of a sudden that demand goes up. But if the stadium, and see, that's the other thing too that I think people forget about, is that I sit around and I'm biased now because I got a kid who goes to school at Augustana. It's a smaller stadium. It's a D2 school. It is a great place to go watch a college football game. If you want a college football experience, go to one of these D2 schools like Augustana. Go check it out. Go up to Morningside and watch an NAIA game and see what that's like. There's some great college football happening all over the place, and that's spreading. I mean, it's spreading the consumer around a little bit. The other thing is the whole streaming of games. I can sit at home and I can watch multiple college football games all day long from my couch. The bathroom's right there. The beer's cheap. The food is DoorDash away. My grill's out back smoking some kind of salty meats. And it's one of those things like, why would I go to a game when I've got that? So if if you want people to show up to a game, it better be a freaking awesome experience. You better be getting your money's worth.
So behind Rob is a monitor that has a Doc Talk logo in it, right? I sat in this office yesterday put on my YouTube TV, which divides it into 4 games. I had 4 games going here. I had a game on this monitor over here, and I had a laptop here. And I'm like, you know what? The last college football game I've been to in person, and I have no regret saying this, was, I believe, Iowa, Nebraska in Lincoln in like 2011, 2012. And I don't have a desire, and trust me, I've been to my fair share of college football games. Okay,
and I do like the in-person.
I get it.
I love the in-person experience.
But I'm drinking my own beer, I'm eating my own food, and I've got a great game day experience. It doesn't bother me at all.
Well, you see my photos from Augustana.
Yeah.
They said they got a beer garden.
Yeah, but
in
you know
the
what?
stadium.
I almost like
God,
that.
That's nice.
I almost like that better than I like it's 76,000, just because it's more intimate. It's more personal.
Yeah, I'll take the 5,000 to 10,000 people at Augustana with a craft beer in my hand, watching the game, eating a burger. Going to grill out before the game. We're going to grill out after. It's going to be awesome. That's what I love. But I mean, you got to have some kind of that type of experience again, or people are eventually not going to show up. There's been a ton of talk over the last 5 years about the sellout streak at Nebraska. And the fact that it's sort of the sellout streak's a little bit of a facade. People are buying the tickets. Don't get me wrong. They're selling it out. They are selling the tickets. But they're
not showing up.
They're not showing up. I mean, that's like pissing on me and telling me it's raining. It's not really happening, okay?
I got to use that line. It's like pissing on me and telling me it's raining.
Yeah, it's just, okay, that's not quite what's happening. I'm going to these games that are a sellout, and I'm looking around going, there's 10,000 empty seats in this place.
Yeah.
There are.
Yeah, 100%.
And guess what? Where I'm sitting, I'm packed in. I got 10 inches. I got like a 16-inch ass, dude. I'm not skinny. I'm not fat. I'm in shape.
Yeah.
But I mean, my butt is not 10 inches across.
Booty. You got some booty. Yeah, you got a bigger...
Thick
You're
with
thick.
2 C's.
You're thick. Hey, do you got some time for some email? And I don't want you to get long-winded here.
I fucking love emails.
I know you do.
I've got a couple of beers in me now, so let's talk some emails.
Yeah, I know we've had a 5.7 and a 7.4.
Which, by the way, the Pals beer, dude, that went down smooth. You're still drinking yours like
Jason. You send us more Pals. We're not going to bitch about it.
Yeah, the Pals was outstanding. So props to North Platte, and like I said, I've had Pals before. I go to McHugh's. The first thing I'm getting is Pals because it's so damn consistent. They do a good job.
All right, this is from Steve. What goes through a visiting recruit's mind when they're standing there on the sidelines during a bad blowout game? Does the Nebraska staff say something like, "See, we really do need you"?
Yes, 100%. It's a good question. And yeah, that's one of those situations where you're telling the kid, listen, you've got the opportunity to play here. That thought went through my mind. When I was coming out of high school, I'm looking at Nebraska's roster, and this is when Nebraska was good. And I'm looking at it going like, okay, like half the O-line's 268 pounds. I know I can beat that dude out. That makes a difference.
Yeah.
You want to play for a winner, but the bottom line is you want to play. And you want to play for good people.
And you want to play right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that makes a difference.
Our good buddy, Active Duty Husker, he seems to be in Honolulu right now.
And he's on Twitter pretty good follow on Twitter, by the way, if you get a chance.
It's Michael. He goes, well, I didn't go as expected. He goes, I didn't expect to win, but I didn't expect at least a little more competitive. Can there be any positives drawn from the game going forward? And is it going to be a long, short week before Illinois?
It is going to be a long, short week before Illinois because I think Illinois is a must-win right now. You want to see Nebraska get that third win. I think that's huge for them, and it's a conference win. The positives to come out of it, the one big positive, I say lack of turnovers. I know there was the interception, but it was a tipped ball, which that's just, hey, sometimes the defense makes a play and you can't help it. Nebraska, since Harburg's been the starter, has done very well as far as the turnovers go. Anthony Grant had a fumble. Nebraska recovered it. So they're doing very well in that regard. That's a big step in my mind because that's one of the things that has really haunted Nebraska over the last, 7-8 years.
Doug Seaman, former Husker walk-on, I believe,
Bellevue East Chieftain.
Look at that. I think it's that Doug Seaman. I don't know any other Doug Seamans.
I don't know a lot of Doug Seamans.
Here's a guy that says, why is the offensive line recruiting, and especially development, fallen so hard? This isn't a short-term question, but a long-term trend. I would ask this in context of 20 years. Is it the love of analytics and measurables over judgment? Is it miscommunication between head coach, offensive coordinators, offensive line coach, strength and conditioning, which we talked about earlier, or something else? It could be fucking everything, by the way.
It's a little of everything. I mean, I think in terms of the overall recruiting, they've done an okay job in that regard. You've got a lot of guys they've gotten on campus, and I think there's been some misjudgments with in terms of how to manage the guys they have had. When I was in Lincoln, I thought, dude, managing college football players is not an easy thing, even for great coaches. And the example I'll give is that the 93 season, I was the starting left guard. Now I was probably, at least in that system, a better tackle than I was a guard in that system. And so they started me at left guard because in Osborne's mind, and Osborne overruled Milt Tenopir on this. Tenopir and Young wanted me to be the swing guy, which was basically the guy that, hey, you'll have the starters, but then I'll go in and be a pseudo starter, and I'll do a couple of series at left tackle, couple series at left guard, couple series at right guard, couple series at right tackle. I'll go take a break and then come out and repeat. Other guys that have done this over the years, Matt Hoskinson, et cetera. That's what they wanted me to do. That's what Tenopir and Young wanted me to do that year. Tom Osborne told Tenopir, he goes, I think Rob's one of the best 5 linemen on the team. You got to start him. So Osborne overruled Tenopir. They stuck me in at left guard. Probably wasn't the best spot. I was a better tackle. But you had 2 all-conference tackles already in Zach Wiegert and Lance Lundberg. So they put me in at guard. Joel Wilkes was a better guard than I was. I might have been a better offensive lineman overall, maybe, than Joel. I was a better tackle than Joel, but Joel was a better guard than I was. But Joel took more snaps that year. Looking back on it, I think Tenopir and Young were right, and Osborne was wrong.
Whoa!
My point is that managing players, like managing putting who to put where, is not easy for Hall of Fame caliber coaches even.
Yeah.
Because Tenopir and Young were Hall of Fame caliber offensive line coaches.
You know who's in that position right now? Jim Harbaugh.
Exactly.
Just because there's that much depth.
And by the way, these are good problems to have.
Absolutely.
If you're going to have a problem, this is the one you want to have, where you're sitting here going, I got 7 guys who are all conference caliber guys. How do I get all 7 guys into a unit that only has 5 starters? That's a good problem to have. So managing these guys. So the example I'll give is you go back a few years ago. Think about when Cam Jurgens, by the way, playing at a Pro Bowl level at right guard for the Philadelphia Eagles right now.
Yeah.
While he waits his turn to take over when Jason Kelce retires to become a Pro Bowl center for the Philadelphia Eagles. The guy is a mauler, and he's going to be an amazing, amazing NFL football player. When he was at Nebraska, the question came up, you got this guy who is utterly destroying guys with his blocking, but can't snap. And I'm talking about Cam Jurgens at center. And they don't want to pull him from that position because they're like, yeah, the snaps are going over the quarterback's head 1 out of 3 times, but Jesus, he's annihilating guys. I mean, he's just nuking dudes across from him. D linemen and linebackers hated the guy, and he was getting personal foul penalties because the rest didn't know how to deal with the fact that he was killing guys so badly. So how do you manage that? Well, the solution is you got a guy in AJ Forbes who's a Bellevue West kid, who's on the roster, is playing very well, but he's not Cam Jurgens. You move Cam, you do what the Eagles did. You move Cam Jurgens to guard and let him keep nuking guys. And you take a guy who's now, I'm not even sure what conference, whatever conference Montana's in. So
Big Sky, isn't it?
So is it Big Sky? Yeah. So AJ Forbes transfers to Wisconsin. He's going to end up being like 3-time all-conference honoree at center for Montana, and is going to have an outside shot at making it into the NFL as an offensive lineman, and is a really, really good college center. Nebraska should have started AJ Forbes as a redshirt sophomore at center and moved Cam Jurgens to guard, and once Forbes graduated, bounced Cam back to center. It's what they should have done, and they didn't do that. That was a mismanagement of personnel. But again, great coaches do that mismanagement. The other one was Chris Walker, who is a 6'6", 6'7", 300-pound kid coming out of high school at Lincoln East, could run like a deer, looked like a pro wrestler. He was just a beast of an athlete. He really wanted to play defense. It was the whole Zach Potter thing, which we've talked about before.
I saw Zach the other day. He wants to come on the podcast.
Dude, I would love... Zach's a great dude. Dave's a great dude. We should have him on.
Well, we'll wait till the season's over.
Fine, whatever.
Well, we don't do interviews during the season. We do have a special interview coming up. There's going to be a special midweek podcast coming up.
It's going to be so good. I can't wait.
I know. So just to tease you, we're not going to tell you who, but Tuesday or Wednesday, look for another podcast to drop.
So anyway, my point is you had Chris Walker, who comes out of Lincoln East, first-team All-State, prep All-American, goes to Nebraska, wants to play defense. They let him play defense, and he basically sort of like squanders 3 years as a backup defensive lineman for Nebraska. And the whole time I'm looking at him going like, this guy is one of the best high school offensive tackles I've seen in 10 years come out of the state of Nebraska. And the whole time he's in Lincoln, I'm just like, this is so disappointing seeing Chris Walker as a defensive lineman at Nebraska. Well, guess what Chris Walker does? He follows AJ Forbes to Montana, transfers there. They take one look at him and they're like, yeah, you're an offensive lineman. You're not a D lineman. Guess what Chris Walker is?
NFL lineman.
He's a 2-year starting left offensive tackle for the University of Montana, who, guess what? If he had stayed in Lincoln and played offensive line, he would be the starting left tackle for Nebraska. And guess who he would be better than?
Corcoran?
Yeah.
Yeah.
By light years. He is a very, very good offensive tackle. So to answer the question, there's oftentimes a mismanagement of personnel. And those AJ Forbes and Chris Walker are two massive examples of personnel mismanagement by Nebraska coaching staffs over the last several years.
One more question. This comes from Darren down in Memphis. Love me some Memphis. Beale Street's fun. Quarterback progressions. Can this be taught? It seems like either you got it or you don't.
Yes and yes.
I'm kind of with you.
Yeah, there's some guys who just don't have the capability to do that, or don't have the capability to do it at the level, at the speed that it needs to be done at the college level. And obviously we're talking about Sims. Jeff Sims doesn't have the ability to make those progressions in a timely fashion. He just doesn't.
A lot of quarterbacks don't.
I would probably say most guys who play the position don't have that capability, and the ones who do become Division I college football players. They become NFL quarterbacks.
Hey, we do want to send another thank you out to Jason Clark, who sent us some Pals Brewing Company out of North Platte. Holy moly. This is good beer.
That was super smooth.
That's really good
the
beer.
jalapeno was outstanding.
I've been saying it. Rob's been saying it. If you haven't watched Behind the Point Spread live on Wednesday nights on our YouTube channel.
It's the best show in college football.
It really
is.
Really is a good show. You can watch it by subscribing to our YouTube channel, Behind the Point Spread, presented by BetFred Sports.
Go listen to Scott Spreitzer and become the smartest college football fan.
You will be able to have water cooler conversations that you never thought you could have by watching this show. You will leave that show.
People will come to you to get their information.
If you want to sound like the expert amongst your friend groups, Watch that show. You won't be disappointed.
It is. It's the best show on college football out there right now.
Big thanks to our good friends out at Husker Max, David Max, Joe Hudson, for distributing this podcast. They put it on HuskerMax.com. They don't have to, but they do, and we appreciate them for that. For the latest news and opinion from a variety of voices, go to HuskerMax.com. We read some emails tonight. If you want your emails read, if you have questions, send them to Doc Talk Sports.
And if you've got a critique of the doc's diagnosis, send it in.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it. We had some great points made this week.
Yeah. DocTalkSports@gmail.com. That's also, if you want to send us beer, send us a question there, because we like beer. And we'll take your beer if you're going to send it to us.
We will drink your beer.
Follow us on social media channels. Dr. Rob on Twitter, now X at Doc Talk Sports. You can like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and yes, follow us on TikTok. We're there on TikTok. For Dr. Rob Zatechka, I'm Travis Justice. We'll talk to you later this week. We're going to have a special in-week podcast.
I look forward to this every
It's going to be interesting, that's for sure. When somebody writes it, not too many people say, hey, can I be on your podcast? There's not too many people we say yes to.
Well, that's an auto yes.
This is an auto yes. It's coming up later in the week on the Doc Talk Podcast presented by BetFred Sports.